to kind of get into the handling, and then I'll get into the engine. All right, here we go. Oh man, that thing sounds really good. Welcome to Drive Culture. I'm Jonathan Rivers, and today we have the 1997 Nissan Skyline GT-R R33. And I'm going to tell you why this is one of the best generations of the Nissan Skyline. So we're going to go over the exterior, the interior, the powertrain, and of course, take it for a drive. So if this is content you're after, or you're new to the channel, please be sure to click that bell to subscribe to come back for more. And with that, let's get after it. Now guys, this is it. This is the first and not last Nissan Skyline we're going to bring to you here on Drive Culture. So super excited to bring this mint condition R33 here to the channel. So let's take a step back and let's talk about the history of the Skyline and the GT-R. So first and foremost, right, this car was never sold here in the United States. It was only sold in Japan, and they made some, you know, kind of gray imports into Europe and Australia and other countries. But it's only been until recently that you could even bring in a car like this legally to the United States, right? There was this 25-year law where if the vehicle was over 25 years old, you can now legally import it into the United States. So super lucky to have this ultra rare vehicle, you know, here on the channel. So you guys might go back and say, well, okay, R33, this is the third generation. Well, no, technically it doesn't work like that. So actually, Nissan brought out the first really GT-R branded vehicle in 1969. It goes all the way back. That was technically the first generation, which lasted a couple years. Then they brought out a second generation of that GT-R car. And then it wasn't until really the 80s where finally they brought out the R32 as we know it, right? And it was that car that kind of changed the game for Nissan and the sports car segment. In fact, not everybody knows this. It was an Australian magazine, a publication, that first branded this car Godzilla, right? They lay claims to that, right? So ever since then, the name is stuck and it's carried on with each successive generation. So after R32 comes R33. And again, there's everybody remembers the R34, right? The car that showed up in the Fast and the Furious. That's the car that I think is really iconic now and what people remember. But this generation of you know, GT-Rs definitely has its own fan base, and for good reason too, because it is a really awesome sports car. So let's talk about it here. This is a single owner car, right, before it got over here, and then it's got 116,000 kilometers as of today. So that roughs out to about 72,000 miles. So really, really impressive, again, given the age of this vehicle. But beyond that, this particular car here went back and got a full OEM restoration by Prince Tokyo Motorsports, right? If you guys know Nissan and you know GT-R stuff, you know that is the first dealership that Nissan ever opened, and it's what they actually use to do these full OEM level restorations, right? Down to the rubber seals and gaskets and just little things. But this car has a lot more than just that. It actually has some engine work, which we'll get into, and it has lots of unique R34 parts and components on here that also help it really stand out and look truly unique. But holistically, this car is kind of what I would like to call OEM plus, and for good reason too. So with that, next, let's go ahead and do a full exterior walk around of this R33. All right, guys, here we are with this R33 GT-R, guys. How cool is this to be able to have this car finally in the US, finally to be able to drive this thing on the streets. Now, if you guys don't know, I actually lived in Japan for several years, right? And when I did live there, I actually had my own Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 4. Now, when I had that car, I had a lot of car guy friends in Japan, and several of them had GT-R. So I actually had a chance to drive this car in Japan about 20 years ago. So it's been a minute since I've driven this type of car. And it's been a minute since I've driven a right-hand drive vehicle. I actually still have a valid Japanese driver's license that I keep. And so I can actually drive while I'm over there. But admittedly, this might be my first or second time to ever drive a right-hand drive car here in the States. So that's going to be interesting. Well, I can't wait to get behind the wheel, but let's go ahead and talk about the exterior design of the R33. So even before I get started, guys, tell me right off the bat, is your favorite generation the 32, the 33, the 34, or even the more recent 35? Let us know your guys' thoughts and comments down below. Which one looks best to you? But man, like I said in the beginning, just the care that has been taken to this vehicle and how pristine and immaculate, and the fact that it went through the full factory OEM restoration process. I mean, this thing looks like it just rolled off the showroom floor. It's pretty amazing. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and talk about this color. It's called Spark Silver Metallic, right? And it's even today, it just has an awesome, shine to it. It's kind of color shifting. It gets kind of like light silver, dark silver, depending on how you get up on it. But man, the design of this generation was really good in my opinion. Had very clean, very straight character lines. You can see them kind of prominent there in the hood. Come down to this front end, which is super aggressive, right? So of course you got that ultra iconic GTR badge up front. Can't beat that. You got these xenon headlights, right? It says Xenon and Nissan in the headlights. The clear markers, Japan is totally cool with that. But then down below, you got this really aggressive front fascia, which is, essentially GTR specific, right? So if you look at the bumper here, you can see there's a lot of functional cooling and openings down below. So there's a huge front mount intercooler that's hidden away there, but it's nice because there's like a blacked out grill, right? So it really kind of like keeps itself in and you can't see it hiding behind there. You do have those factory OEM fog lights, and those big square openings there, those are N1 ducts. So if you guys know the Nissan lingo, those are actual functional ducts that feed air into the engine bay. So that's really cool. And then down below there, this whole big black lip that you see there, that was a part of what they call this GTR Series 3 package. So that's what this car is. There's multiple series, and there were some kind of like significant like styling differences that they had between the different series. But let's go ahead and take in just a full profile of this thing. It looks so good. It looks really good, guys. Look at that. Just super iconic and still yet modern, right? The fact that this car is like in the late 90s, it literally looks like it just came out. It has a really, really nice design, those really strong character lines that go across the entire length of the vehicle. But if you guys are really, some Skyline fanboys, you're gonna notice something different about this car. And yes, you guessed it right, it's the wheels. Let's go take a look at that because like I said in the beginning, there's lots of R34 components in this vehicle, in the engine bay and throughout, but more importantly are these wheels. These are actually stock R34 GTR wheels that were put on this car. It's even got the GTR cap. They're in that iconic color, and man, they look so good. So these are wrapped in a Michelin tire. They're 245 40R18s, and man, it just looks so good. Now, peeking behind there, you can see those 4-piston Brembo calipers, and the calipers painted in black. So that's actually an interesting touch. A lot of calipers are painted red, especially back in the 90s. So pretty interesting that they did that. Now, off to the right here, you guys, again, that love GTRs, you're gonna notice that GT badge in silver and red, and that's super iconic because that's what's essentially signifies that this car is a GTR and not just some regular Skyline. So clear side marker there. Again, take a step back. Now, normally, this is where the steering wheel on the driver's side would be, but it's right-hand drive, so we're looking at the passenger door of the car. But let's go ahead, make our way to the rear. We'll go ahead and take a look at the wheel and tire. So again, the same R34, wheels in the back. Same, it's a square setup. So again, 245 40 R18, but you see it has a smaller Brembo brake back here, but that is a nice touch. Now, one of the things here that I want to just quickly get to is the spoiler. How cool is that it says GTR? But what's interesting is it's actually only on this passenger side of the vehicle. On the other side, this plate is just blank. So I'll show you that in here in a sec, but I thought that was really unique. There's the old school antenna, guys, retracting antenna, and it does have a windshield wiper in the rear. So that's really nice. But let's go ahead and take a look at this, man. The rear of the car is so iconic. Those four circular taillights, you know, that's what the GTR is known for. That huge GTR badge on the back, that huge spoiler, right? Again, it's just so 90s JDM. It doesn't get much more than this. Now, this particular car is just a GTR. It's not a V-Spec or one of those trims, but it's still special and really stands out. So if we go ahead and take a look, you can see the GTR badge, you see the Skyline badging, the Nissan cover for the keyhole that opens up the trunk, those iconic taillights. Now what's cool is you'll notice here on the left, this is actually for the reverse light, that kind of like light there on the right. But on this side, you'll notice that it's filled in and it's red. So they only have like that one side for the reverse light, which is interesting. Also down below is this exhaust, which is stock, but man, I can't wait to fire this thing up and you guys can hear what this thing sounds like. So I'm just gonna quickly walk over to the side and show you. See, there enough, there's the panel and it's blank. So that's kind of like unique that they only put it on the one side of the spoiler there. There you can see the gas cap, it's on the driver's side of this vehicle. And I mean, guys, that's it in a nutshell. So, I mean, come on, R33 here in the States, about to take this thing for a drive. But first, now that we've covered everything on the exterior, let's go ahead and hop inside to talk about the interior. All right, guys, here we are inside the GT-R R33. And I can't tell you what it's like to be in here. It is amazing. It feels like this car is brand new. Like it just rolled off the freaking Prince Tokyo Motorsports lot. Like that's how new this car looks and feels and almost smells, right? So like literally the owner told me that through that factory OEM restoration, pretty much everything you can like touch and see was basically redone, which is incredible. I mean, everything from the steering wheel, guys. I mean, it looks like new leather. But it looks new, but it doesn't look like out of place. It looks like the car was just, you know, kept in a museum for 30 years and now we're driving it, which isn't the case. Because like I said, you know, there's 72,000 miles of life on this car, but it was brought back to OEM spec. And so the steering wheel looks and feels great. There's actually red contrast stitching on the steering wheel, which is nice. You know, again, given that this is 90s, everything's very simple. There's not a bunch of screens and features and everything, but you know, you got the Nissan logo kind of like, you know, embossed into the airbag cover, some buttons here to tell you those where your horn is. But man, how iconic right in front of you, these gauge clusters. It looks so good, guys. Like, don't get me wrong, all the new gauge clusters that are out, digital this and that, I kind of like the way this looks. It looks so good. The font type is perfect. It's the right size. It's easy to read. It's got the awesome GTR badge in there. The red line, now again, it actually stops at 8,000, which is super impressive, but it reads to 10,000. So that looks even better. It looks super cool. And it's got this kind of like carbon fiber, you know, overlay around the gauges. I mean, it just looks so darn good, right? So if I look around and start touching around, I mean, even the kind of radio controls. So there's actually a CD player. Again, this car is 1997, so there's an actual CD player. It's got some basic functionality to adjust the tunes. There are buttons here for the climate control. You also get some gauges here, which is kind of cool, right? It was from this, you know, generation where they added these gauges. And of course, once you got to the R34, they got digital. But again, I kind of like the fact that they're analog gauges right here in easy view. Man, oh man, I mean, all of the materials, the doors, right? So this was another thing with that, you know, Series 3 is they had this kind of red, you know, background to the perforation. And this is like a suede material that still feels really good and premium, even compared to you know, to today's new modern vehicles, right? And as I look and, you know, touch, I mean, let's just talk about the transmission. Now, we're going to get to drive it and roll through the gears. But I mean, even the shift boot, everything looks brand new. It doesn't look like anyone's ever gripped this shift knob. The parking brake feels brand new, looks great. You got this awesome GTR badge down here that's in chrome and in the red for the R. It looks really, really good. I mean, even inside here, there's stuff inside, but I mean, there's actually a decent amount of space. There's obviously a traditional glove box, but let's talk about the star of the show, which are these seats. These seats are fantastic. And what's really cool is a part of that full restoration process is the owner got these like Nismo covers that go over the seat. They're apparently super rare. You almost never see these, but they're perfectly fit to the seats. They're leather on the outside, stitched in, you know, Nismo right here with the red O, looks really cool, and then suede all along the back and the bottom. And these seats, they may not look like it, but they're actually really well bolstered, right? And I feel like if you got a bigger frame, might be too big for these seats. They're very, very narrow and where they keep you in, but they feel great. And I'm sure they're gonna, you know, really hold me in during the drive. The last thing I'll talk about before trying to squeeze into the rear here is even if you look at the carpet was replaced. The flare, this is actually a certified flare, so it works, right? Every detail, the moldings, the clips, the buttons, everything was redone. I can't get over it, guys. It's it's amazing to be driving a right-hand drive, you know, GTR in America, but one that is in this condition. I mean, hey, very, very lucky. So next, let's go ahead and kind of squeeze into the rear to see what's back there. All right, guys, here I am in the rear of this GTR R33, and surprisingly, there's actually a lot of space. Now, right now, I got the seat, you know, pushed forward. I'm on the passenger side of the vehicle, but I'll pull it back here in a second to see how much space I'd have if that was in its, you know, actual position. But man, as far as like the seats, they're kind of like sunk in. They have that same awesome material that the front seats have, that leather surfacing, the suede surfacing in the middle with the red perforation peeking from behind. And that's true even on the side pieces here. So like it actually feels really premium, right? It feels like there's a lot of good high quality materials. But awesome is, you know, what's awesome is this like carpeted material, and there's actually a Nissan genuine parts badge. Now it's actually like real metal badge. It's like filled in red that says Skyline GT-R. We'll show you what that looks like. Again, it's super premium. So really appreciate the details. There's actually map pockets in these like seat covers as well. So really, really nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and watch this. I'm gonna slide this back, locks into place. I got a lot of space, guys. I got several inches of knee room. My feet actually fit under these front bucket seats. I mean, you can fit 4 adults in here, no problem. So a lot of space, which is definitely impressive. And then again, it's just a simple latch and it pretty much slides forward. So really good space in the back. But next, let's go ahead and check out the cargo area. All right, guys, let's go ahead and check out the cargo space of this GTR R33. So first and foremost, we have the key fob here. I'm going to show you what this looks like. It is pretty awesome, man. It is like legit. It says GTR. It's got the red R, and it actually even has like one button to like lock and unlock the door. So there's some kind of modern technology embedded in all this as well. But in order to unlock and open the trunk here, there's actually this Nissan logo that you kind of like just swivel up. And once you swivel it up, it reveals the keyhole. So I'll go ahead and push that in and turn. And then just like that, it opens up. Now, admittedly, this is a little heavy. I think part of it is that huge spoiler back there. But there you go, guys. That's the trunk space. Once you open it up, what you'll first notice beyond the space back here, which there's a pretty good amount of space back here. I actually couldn't find the exact cubic feet of space, but I'm gonna guess it's like, you know, maybe 8-ish cubic feet of space. So but what's cool is this strut bar, which is total like OEM, actually says Skyline in red, looks really cool. And then what's awesome is under the floor here, if you peel this back, there's actually additional bracing back here, which was a part of that Series 3 for this generation GTR. So that's an actual nice upgrade. The other thing that's cool is underneath is there's an actual spare tire. Like I mean, it looks like a full spare to me. Like, it's a huge spare tire that's underneath. And then lastly, what's cool is the battery is actually kind of hidden away behind this panel in the back. So the battery was moved to the back to help with overall weight distribution for the car, which again is a modern day practice, but pretty cool. They were doing that back in the the mid 90s. So definite props there. So next, let's go ahead up front and talk about the powertrain. All right, guys, here we are with the powertrain of this GT-R R33. Now, first and foremost, let's talk about what's stock, what's maybe not stock, but even before you get to that, just like all these other components on this particular car, this whole engine bay, a lot of what you see here was a part of that OEM factory restoration. Again, there's even a stamped badge that says Prince Tokyo Motorsports here, guys. So again, it doesn't get more authentic than that, right? And there's tons of Japanese writing. I can actually read it all over the place here. So this is super authentic. It doesn't get more JDM than this. Now, what we're working with here is this super iconic engine, right? If you're a Nissan guy, if you're a GT-R, you know about this RB26 DETT, right? This is like a famous engine, right? And it made its way into multiple generations of GT-Rs as well. Now, this was a 2.6 liter twin turbo straight six engine, right? Now, one of the things you may or may not know is back in the day, the Japanese OEM automakers had an agreement with the government not to produce cars with more than 280 PS, which is about 276 horsepower, right? That was a gentleman agreement between them and the government. The reality is it actually made a lot more power than that. And in several cases, if you were to take a stock car and dyno it, there's been lots of results, usually in like the 320-ish horsepower range. So making a lot more power than what you might actually think. Now, the cool thing about this particular GT-R is that it actually has some upgrades even beyond that. So it has these aftermarket HKS pipes. There's a Nismo block, oil cooler, and water pump on this thing that are also extra, right? But one of the cool things is going back to this engine is normally this area here is painted black, but the owner, they actually had it painted that jade green that's on like the, Nürburgring spec R34s and stuff like that. So that's a super nice touch and makes this look super premium. But, you've got this very powerful engine. And this year, it's made it exclusively to a 5-speed manual transmission. Some of the later model years came with a 6-speed manual, but in this case, it's a 5-speed manual. It has that, all-wheel drive system, which Nissan was super famous for. And it even has 4-wheel steering, right? So lots of crazy technology, even back in the 90s. So there's no better way than to prove that out than to get behind the wheel. So next, let's go ahead and take this thing for a drive. All right, guys, here we are inside the Nissan Skyline GT-R R33. And I'm about to go ahead and take this thing for a drive. So obviously I'm a little bit excited, but here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my seatbelt here. It's got this kind of special anchor that pulls out. So that's interesting. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw on the seatbelt. Should be good. And again, it's got the manual key. So clutch in, go ahead. All right. So neutral. Now again, guys, I have to shift with my left hand, and it's been a minute since I've done this. So let's see what happens here. Let's see if I can do that. All right, this is gonna be quite interesting, right? Like I said, I've owned right-hand drive vehicles before, but to be fair, that was in Japan where they drive like that. So here it is gonna be a little interesting, and it is my first time going out in this thing and driving, guys. So why don't we go ahead and get out on the street and I'll show you what it's like to drive. All right, guys, here we are setting off in the GT-R R33, and it is pretty crazy, like I said, to be driving a right-hand drive car here in the US. And again, I do have to get a little used to shifting with my left hand again, but it's not as bad as I remember the first time learning how to drive a manual car. I think honestly what's more is using the the turn stalks, right? Getting used to the fact that that they're kind of like flipped, right? I have to use my right hand to signal. So there's a little just differences there by driving a right-hand drive car that I have to get used to. But what I can say, man, is the shifter is really good. It's really good. It feels rock solid. It's easy to shift gears. It just has really good clutch engagement. It's not too stiff. It's not, it's not too light. It's a really, really good clutch placement. The pedals are placed right. Just the overall shifting experience is very kind of like notchy too. It's really good, guys. And yeah, no, I'm not gonna have any issues stalling out. This is really good. And just slides into gear, has just a little bit of clicking to it, but once you're in gear, it feels really good. So the other thing is, I got to get used to the fact that I'm looking at speed in kilometers here. I'm like, wow, how fast am I going? But, that's just something you get used to. But, man, just cruising around town, this is fantastic. Like, the suspension's really good. There's really not a lot of wind noise. You definitely get some road noise from the tires and whatnot, but it's not much. But man, the ride quality, I forgot how good the GTRs actually ride. It's really, really good. And so here we are. And then that's up in 5th gear, and so now I'm just straight up cruising. 65 kilometers. Do the math for yourself. I'm not going too fast here, but it is a really good driving experience. And even as I go over some of these bumps here, no, it's not bad at all. Yeah, it's really cool and really fun to heel and toe in this thing. And yeah, the engine sounds really good, man. That straight 6, man, it sounds awesome. It really does. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. And honestly, I think when we think about GTR and you think about Skylines, you just think about these like, it's a huge sports car and it's big, but by modern car standards, this actually feels like normal. Maybe even on the smaller side of things. I'm sure back in the day, people thought this was really big, but that's definitely not the case now in this modern era. This car is actually like the right size for these roads. So it doesn't feel big, doesn't feel overwhelming. In fact, like I said, it feels like, honestly, the perfect size. So we're gonna go ahead and get into a little bit more aggressive driving once we get out of traffic here. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna talk about, again, just overall the quality. Again, I think the fact that this car, being able to basically just be factory restored, it's such a weird feeling because the car looks, feels, and basically smells brand new. It really is a unique experience. I mean, even when I got a chance to drive one of these cars, 20 plus years ago in Japan, that car was actually beaten up pretty bad. And I mean, it wasn't in bad shape, but it didn't feel or look like this car here. So I really, appreciate this experience, right? And again, I definitely want you guys to let us know down in the comments below, do you want to see, the R34? Do you want to see the R35 and other generations of GTR on the channel? Definitely happy to bring it to you. So I'm kind of stuck in traffic here, so let me pause and then we'll get right back into it. All right, so here we are. We're gonna go over some speed bumps here. There's actually a speed bump and a railroad track. Kind of go over the first one. All right, so there's a little bit of shock, but I mean, again, given the car's age and the kind of stiffness to the suspension, it's not to be expected. Now, the next one we're gonna go over is actually a lot more aggressive. So this is kind of a true test. I drive this road all the times in sports cars, supercars, SUVs, you name it. So this one, I'm going just under 60 kilometers an hour. So we'll see how the car handles it. I mean, honestly, yeah, there's some undulation. You can obviously feel just how stiff the chassis is, but it's actually not that bad. And given the fact that it is a sports car, it actually did really well. But here we go. Got a little chance to kind of get into the handling, and then I'm going to get into the engine. All right, here we go. Oh, man. That thing sounds really good. That sounds really good. Oh, that's a lot of fun, guys. All right, so here we go. We're gonna give it another chance. It's really cool how it just builds up speed. Man, this straight 6, and man, when the turbos kick in, it's really good. So here we go. This sounds awesome.
awesome. That sounds really good, and man, oh, it's fun to heel and toe and get after it. So try some of the handling here, and yeah, it grips, and here comes the turbos, guys. There we go. Oh man, this thing freaking rips. Even like by today's like modern standards, this thing is fast. It's fast, and it just sounds really good too. I mean, you can definitely get into some trouble with this thing, but it's funny because yeah, I mean the handling is so good, the engine sounds so good, and you got the manual transmission, and it's just a really analog, amazing driving experience here. So got another chance, kind of hit the turns here, try it out. Yeah, it's really good. So. Fun to drive. Wow. Like I said, I was lucky enough to drive this and the other GTRs in the past. I owned an Evo when I lived in Japan. I don't remember it being this good. I think some of it is the nostalgia factor kicking in, but some of it, again, is just the way the market is today. Cars don't look like this, they don't behave like this, they don't drive like this, and in most cases, they definitely don't sound like this, right? So it really is a unique driving experience, and my God, if you're lucky enough to own this car and drive this car here in the States, especially in some place like this, Southern California, where you got great weather, great driving roads and scenery. I mean, this has got to be automotive enthusiast bliss. I mean, this is fantastic, and now it really makes me want to get an R34 on the channel, which I'm gonna do. Give me some time, it's gonna happen, guys. But in the meantime, let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Did you like this video? Do you want to see more heritage older models? Do you want to see more right-hand drive models? And of course, you want to see more GTRs. Happy to bring it to you. So with that, I'm going to try not to have too much fun here. We're going to go ahead and wrap up this drive review. So.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. What did you think of this 1997 Nissan Skyline GT-R R33? Is this the best generation of all the Skylines? Is this truly the Godzilla to have? Let us know your guys' thoughts and comments down below. Of course, let us know if you want to see other, Skyline GT-Rs on the channel. Of course, we're happy to bring it to you. And again, if you've joined us before, thank you so much. But if you're new to the channel, please be sure to click that bell to subscribe to come back for more. Thanks, and we'll see you at the next episode.